Hi, Gil from Testing Gil here. Psst. When something works, does it really work? As testers, does it work is something that we're really interested in. But what does it work exactly means? Let's look at a very simple example. Here's a bit of code that adds a number to a stored value. Does it work? Well, we'll need a criteria for what works means, so let's write a unit test. The test checks that adding a number returns the right result. So, does it work? Well, if I was a developer, I'd say yes. But let's be more persistent. If we want more confidence, let's add another test, like this one. This one checks that we can add twice. I think we have enough confidence now, because we checked that adding once works and adding twice works. So, does it work? Well, I forgot to tell you something. This piece of code of calculator is actually called by an API. And we're adding the value to a global store. So, suddenly works takes on more responsibilities. Here are the same tests that we had, but from the API's point of view. Now, this test makes sure that the code that we wrote that runs inside the API works correctly. Oh, I just remembered something else. Adding is per caller. If I'm using different users to call the API, each one gets his own calculation separately. Here's a test that proves that. You see, if I call with different users, I don't expect the second calculation to start from where the first one finished. What's happening here? How is something that was already tested became such a monster? In the real world, we'd probably a lot more from the beginning, and I'm not going to feed you bits and pieces as we're going. Well, maybe that's not true. Maybe in the real world I will be feeding you more bits and pieces as we go. But what did we do with each test? We try to define what works means, but in different contexts. In fact, we try to answer different questions. Let's take a look again at the first test. The first question we answered was, can we add a number to the store and get the right result once? Then, the second test that we had answered the question, can we do it more than once? Can we do it twice? Then I added the API case. This test answers another question. It answers, can we do the calculation through an API? This is important because the API does not just call our function. The API code handles the request, calls our function, creates the response and returns it. Functionally though, we expect the same answer. Then I remember the per user requirement. This test answers another question. Can we do the calculation for different users? Does it work contains a lot of questions. Each test defines what works by answering a different question. We shouldn't write a test or perform a test either manually or automatically if we don't know what is the question we're trying to answer. The test will be more effective if we ask the question first, right? Instead of starting from the code and then thinking of cases. It makes more sense to ask the questions first. Because maybe, just maybe, the code might be wrong. Instead of proving the code right by deriving cases from it, doesn't it make sense to ask the questions first without any regard to how the code is written? The proper way is to ask questions and then design our tests to answer these questions. This is a very simple idea, but we don't invest a lot in design when we're thinking about our tests. So, remember kids, ask first, test later. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and watch other videos on this channel. And in the comments, tell me if and when you ask the questions. And if the tests answer your questions. And which questions other than does it work you ask. Until next time, bye-bye.